We got a great weekend planned. It's going to be just super cool. We got the great basketball game tomorrow. Hopefully we'll have 10,000 or more at the Lady Raider game against Baylor. We're going to honor the 30-year anniversary of the national championship team tomorrow. So we got all that going on. National Girls and Women in Sports Day is actually next week, but we're tying it around this weekend's game. And we're so excited to start it today with this breakfast. And we've got a great room and a great group of people, and we've got a fantastic program to start you with. I want to recognize a few people that are here in attendance. First, I want to start with Dr. Janet Mitchell. Where's Dr. Mitchell? She's over there. She is Chancellor Mitchell's wife and an accomplished equestrian, and I wanted to get this right. She qualified on 2 different occasions at nationals in Lexington, Kentucky, not at some podunk place, Lexington, Kentucky. And one year her horse Doc was in the top 10 dressage quarter horses in the United States. So we welcome Dr. Mitchell for being here today. And Dr. Mitchell's probably surprised I pronounced that correctly, dressage, right? Because I bet a lot of people. Yeah, it's fabulous, she said. We've got Patty Skubinak here. Where's Patty? She's up there as well. Patty is runner, walker. She's always finishing way ahead of Dr. Skubinak, President Skubinak. When you see him out on road trips, they always walk and run, and she's always way ahead, and he's trailing behind her. And if you've ever watched any event with Patty, you naturally become intense because she is locked in. So welcome, Patty Skubinak, for being here this morning. Diane Hokut is here. Where's Diane? Okay, there she is. Diane. I should have just known. They're all there in that row. Diane played high school softball. She actually was on the first ever softball team at her high school, and she was really good. And she's also an intense basketball, football, baseball fan. She's at all of our events, and she's also watches very intently. And she's highly critical of the halftime acts that I put out there at games. So we're glad for Diane for being here. Diane. I'm going to go off memory here, so if Andrea's up front, so she can correct me if I miss somebody. We've got our Texas Tech Athletic Department executive staff is here, and I'm going to try to do this in memory in alphabetical. Jennifer Bashir is here. Where's Jennifer? Jennifer right up front. Jennifer is over Internal Affairs and Compliance, and Jennifer's got a road trip today, so glad that she made it today. We've got Dee Dee Brown Campbell here. There's Dee Dee. Dee Dee's over our academic services. Dee Dee ran track at Arkansas, right? So Dee Dee was an accomplished athlete as well. See, I'm already getting it mixed up in my head where I am. Amy Hurd is here. Amy is up front. Amy is over some of our strategic initiatives, and she's been around a long time. She's not old, but she's been around Texas Tech since she was here as a student, and she now has her PhD from Texas Tech as well. We have got Brandy Stewart. Brandy is our SWA and Senior Women's Administrator, and she oversees some of our programs, and she's made a lot of changes here in Texas Tech. We're going to hear from Brandy. She's actually going to lead a panel this morning. And then I mentioned Andrea Tyree up here in the front. She is the Senior Associate AD over Development in the Red Raider Club. Kirby Hokut, who's going to come up here in just a minute, he's got on his executive staff, I believe 50%. I think we may be the only program in the country that our executive staff is 50% female. And let me tell you, it's not just to check a box either. They're very opinionated. They tell me all the time when I'm wrong. They tell all of us all the time when we're wrong. But they're a very opinionated group and a strong group, and we're better at Texas Tech athletics because of them. So, again, thank you for the athletic staff. I think Kirby's going to recognize them. We've got a lot of student athletes here today. We've got a lot of our staff here, just so much that so many of them that have been a big part. We've got female media here that have really made a big difference. I don't want to call their names because I might forget some, but we felt it was important for them to be here because sometimes in a male-dominated sport, we've got females from the media here as well. We're taking this National Girls and Women in Sports Day as a real deal, a big deal. So thank you guys for what you do for being here as well. And then we have many of you that are donors, and you've done such a great job to contributing to all our programs at Texas Tech Athletics, but so many of you have been champions for women's sports, and we thank you for that, and thank you for being here, and thank you for taking time out of your day to be here, and we want to make this a good time for you as well and valuable time for you. We respect your time, and just respect what you've done for Texas Tech and Texas Tech athletics and women's sports at Texas Tech. So thank you, and give yourself a hand for that. Great donors here as well, including United Supermarkets. I want to thank United for donating breakfast this morning, and United always steps up when we ask them, and they provided a great donut. I heard the maple donuts were really good. They had a great breakfast, and the donuts and the burritos and all those things. So thank you to United Supermarkets here as well. I'd like to say none of this happens by accident. We've got a great leader at the top, and so we're going to start off and hear from a guy that really respects what women athletics means to our university and our athletic department. So let's get this thing rolling.
You know, there are so many examples of women who have had opportunities who would probably have never had that opportunity if Title IX hadn't happened. There was such a change in that mentality around Title IX and the things that really took women's sports to a different level.
The tide is changing, floods are coming clear to see. The page is turning, can you feel this energy?
The most important piece of legislation that we faced in the last century, simply because of how many people it impacted.
When we rise, we run on the edge and across the flames. The world we knew is not the same. Feel your soul, feel your desire. Walk through the fire. Leave the space and watch it burn. Let the key
Texas Tech, for the first time in program history, captured the Big 12 title.
I want everyone to have an opportunity to be what they can and be the best that they can be.
Well, good morning. As Robert said, I too thank you for being here this morning. Thank you for being here for our National Girls and Women's in Sports celebration. I'm very fortunate each and every day, but today's a special day, and I'm fortunate every day because I get to represent and serve 168 female student athletes who are on 8 teams and compete in 9 sports. And that's actually an accurate statement, 8 teams and 9 sports, because I count track and field as 2 sports. We have an indoor season and an outdoor season. And I want each of these 168 young women to have a world-class experience at Texas Tech. And their experience, as you know, is so much more than just a game. Although they do captivate us and inspire us through their competition, their sports, alongside the education that they're receiving in the classroom and at Texas Tech, prepare these 168 young women to be future leaders in our city, in our state, in our country, and in our world. And we need strong female leaders today more than we ever have. These 168 young women that I get to serve and work alongside with each and every day, they also accept the responsibility as serving as role models for girls in our community, to show girls in Lubbock and in our surrounding areas and those daughters of the Red Raider Nation that they too can play sport. They can attend and graduate from Texas Tech University. We have a great program this morning. This program was the idea of Brandy Stewart, who you just were introduced to. I appreciate the idea that Brandy brought forward, and she would be the first to tell you that it doesn't happen without large involvement and committees and a team. Andrea Tyree immediately stepped forward and joined alongside Brandy to make this morning possible, and then also Shannon Haubritter and Caitlin Sharp did a lot of the legwork to bring us all together this morning. So as Robert said, let's get this celebration started. Let's celebrate the girls and the women who play sport, who coach sport, and who inspire all of us. It's going to be a great morning. Thank you all for being here, and we look forward to a great weekend. Thank you all.
I was trying to do the math when Brandy started here at Texas Tech. It was it COVID year? Yeah. Okay, so COVID year. So she's made a big impact since she's been here. She is a great athlete. She played, not that the others weren't, that I was saying, I mean, we know Dr. Mitchell, she was a great athlete as well. Doc couldn't be here today, but we know he's doing well out there. But Brandy was a softball player at Florida State, and she is in their Florida State Athletic Hall of Fame. And she is a true champion, not only for student athletes, but also diversity, equity, inclusion. She has been so impactful for us as an athletic department. We've been very lucky to have Brandy with us. And again, as Kirby said, she took the lead on today and made it what it's going to be in this weekend. And so please welcome up here, and she's going to introduce her panel, Brandy Stewart.
Okay, thanks, Gio. I mean, we should have these things all the time as we start the day, because if we started our staff meetings like this, everybody would be feeling pretty good about themselves by the time we got to the agenda. Again, thank you all for being here, and I can't not thank, there was a committee of people who put all this together, male and female staff members who stepped up and just created today and tomorrow what you all will see, and then what you'll see on actual National Girls and Women in Sports Day. So it really does take a village. We were all in this together. It was a very inclusive effort. I can't name everybody, but we will find a way to get everybody recognized, because this doesn't happen without y'all. And so thank you all for being here, and thank you all for the work that you've done to make all this happen. I dream things, and then people put them into motion. So thank you all for making this a reality. So we have a panel of wonderful women who have storied histories in sport and continue to be champions for young girls and women in sports. So I will introduce them and ask them to join me up here on the panel. So first, we're going to start in no particular order. First, we're going to start with Janice, who is a former Lady Raider and member of the 1993 National Championship team. Currently, Janice is an 8th grade reading and language arts teacher, and then sometimes moonlights as a referee, and I can't wait to get into that because we have some pretty good stories about some people that might be in this room. All right, please have a seat, Janice. Thank you. Please, let's welcome Janice to the panel. Next, we have Miss Kayleen. Kayleen, if you'll come up and join us. Kayleen was also a former Lady Raider, but was the first ever female cross-country student athlete at Texas Tech. So I'm sure there are a lot of stories there as well. But now as a retired teacher, after having taught 34 years at Estacado High School here in Lubbock, and spent that time pouring into the young men and women in the local area here, and talking to Kayleen this morning, just briefly, having had the opportunity to teach, coach, and influence 3 generations of families in some instances. Like, think about that. That's really cool, and the legacy that you leave with the people here in Lubbock. So thank you very much for being here, Kayleen. And then lastly, to round out, not a Lady Raider or a Texas Tech grad, but someone who has been very influential in sports, not only through her collegiate career, but also has represented our country and given back to young girls and women who are interested in the sport of softball. Natasha Watley is a former softball player at UCLA. As I mentioned, she's an All-American. She is a Hall of Famer. She is a Olympic medalist, a Honda Award winner, and a Honda Award winner. So I'm very happy to have Natasha Watley with us as well. Okay, so my time and the clock is running. I'm going to do my best to be time, but this is just going to be really conversational for us and an opportunity to share a little bit about you with this group of people who are here today to help us celebrate Girls in Sports Day. So the first question I want to ask, and they've all had the questions ahead of time. I don't know if
Yes, I would say my dad. My dad was my first inspiration to get started in sports. My dad was a big basketball, big football fan. Softball, knew nothing about softball. Why I played softball is a mystery to this day. It's just I gravitated towards, but I would have to say my dad, because he knew nothing about softball, and he went in weeds. He would go and figure out, what that next level looked like, and so he's the one who inspired me to play sport, the one that continued to support me, and my mom as well, but more so my dad, because he's that sports fanatic.
Thank you. Kayleen?
I would have to agree. I think my dad and also my mom, they supported me from day one. If I wanted to play when I was 2 years old, they got me a horse, and I got to ride the horse. And so I started young, and they encouraged me when I played basketball at Tech. Sometimes they were the only ones to watch, and they traveled 200 miles to do it. So, yeah, my parents.
Thank you. Janice?
I'll go with my high school JV coach that I'm still in contact with today. We texted each other just last week, checking on each other, and just poured into me and made me believe what I could do with basketball and all the blessings it could bring me. So at the time, being a sophomore in high school, not knowing which way is up, but then she directed me and just very influential in my life.
Thank you. And I'd probably agree with all of you. Family, young coaches starting out, just having people who empowered me to play sports and like, hey, compete. And that then also I would assume for everyone else on this panel translated into everything that you do, compete, right? Which takes us into the lives that we led and the experiences that we had. And Kayleen, I'm going to start with you. As a former student athlete turned high school teacher and coach, talk to us about the impact that you have seen sport have on young girls in that space. What does that look like? How have you seen that translate in their lives?
I have a perfect story for this. At Estacada, and by the way, I was very blessed to be at Estacada for my entire career. I wouldn't trade it for anything. A lot of people don't really know about Estacada, but it was a great place to work and to basically live. I had a student athlete who in junior high or middle school, I think it was junior high back then, as a ninth grader, we could bring one athlete from each of our feeder schools, and there were two for Estacada. And this student athlete was at Dunbar, and I had never heard of her, never seen her compete in track and field. By the way, I coached track and field most of my career. And so I called the coaches at the feeder schools and asked for suggestions for maybe one student athlete to come to Estacada and compete with us. And they had to be good enough to be at the varsity level as a ninth grader. And so the coach at Dunbar said, well, yes, I have one. So every day I would go over to Dunbar and pick this student athlete up, bring her to Estacada. And to make a long story short, I had never seen her because she never got to compete in middle school track meets because she was being disciplined. She wouldn't behave, she wouldn't work out right, so they sent her home. And she didn't ever get to go to the meets. Well, this student athlete ended up being the state champion in the long jump her junior year at Estacada High School. She got a college scholarship, competed for Kansas, unfortunately not Texas Tech, but for Kansas, and got her degree from Kansas, and currently is a school teacher in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So for me, that's a great success story, and it was all because of athletics. Without athletics, she would have never had the opportunities that she did have. So that's it, basically.
Thank you. I would assume that part of the story that you're leaving out because you wanted to keep it short was that there was some influence in those car rides, conversations that you had in those car rides, trying to figure out, hey, sis, like you're not getting to what you need to do because you're not handling your business and what you're supposed to do. And those are the life lessons that also stick, right? So I'm so glad she got to go to college, but I'm sure she's super excited and very grateful for the car rides that she had with you to and from.
Absolutely. We still talk occasionally, and she has two young daughters that are just fantastic kids. They think I'm their grandmother. So, you know, and that's, you know, yes. I really didn't know that she was a problem, though. She never was a problem for me, and that's why I was so kind of shocked. And then I was like, why didn't I see this kid in middle school? Well, she's being disciplined. For what? She never was a problem for me. But we did have many talks about hard life, because she did have a very hard, basically she had a 12-year-old sister that she was raising, and they kind of got abandoned by their grandmother at one point, and she had the skills because we talked a lot to survive.
Those moments are precious, and hopefully some of us can remember some of the car rides and the conversations that we've had too, that I know makes me warm inside hearing you talk about that. So thank you for sharing that story. Janice, we're going to pivot to you. No pun intended with the pivot. So you are here to help celebrate and be celebrated for the 30th anniversary of the Texas Tech Women's Basketball National Championship. You know, a lot of times we see the hardware, right? Like we see what happened at the end result, but that doesn't happen by accident. So can you talk to us a little bit about what made that year, years leading up to that year, so special in terms of how you all came together to bring home a national championship title? Can you talk a little bit about that?
We could run out of time, but I will try to shorten it a little bit. And I'd say this if Coach Sharp wasn't sitting right here on the front row, but Coach was a mastermind and was great at communication. She was great at making sure, and Krista and I have talked about this just kind of even back in the fall, talking about a reunion weekend and different things and questions coming up, and just a flood of memories from 30 years ago, and more than 30 years ago, really. But then Coach was great at here's your role, and here's what we need you to do for the team. And as long as we embraced that role, then things just started clicking. And it wasn't an always easy process, because you can think, oh, all you did was just you did this and put trophies in, and it was a whole lot more than that. And with D1 athletes filling the room, you know that. And but I knew my role as a role player and coming off the bench and doing what I needed to do, and we knew Krista was going to score. We knew Swoops was going to score. We knew where the ball needed to be. If they were covered, they'd pass it to me. I mean, I knew my role. But then again, lot more breakdown of game film and teams and all that for sure. But then I'm a firm believer. Some things still don't go out of style, and even when Krista asked me to come back and speak to the team in the fall, it was the same. It's the same answer of grit and unselfishness. Buy-in, I think, is huge. And we probably weren't all we had to learn, and Coach is probably going to nod her head on that. And but to just buy in and know and have trust in our coaches and in our staff and teammates. But 30, however many more years, from now, those things just don't go out of style, I don't think. So
totally agree. It's I don't think that student athletes think about this. You play sports where more times you're going to fail than you're going to succeed. But at the end of the day, the winning comes from getting back up again and having some perseverance and not being perfect. I don't think anybody up here has been perfect in what they've done, but very successful in your lives, your careers, the impacts that you've made. And what I've heard through both your story, Janice, and Kayleen's, was this idea of intentionality, right? Like none of these things, success doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen by coincidence. There's thought that goes into it. There's a strategy that goes into it. And so, Natasha, I'm going to ask you, you're probably one of the most decorated people I know. And I was lucky enough to be able to play with you and grow up with you. But, it didn't come just because you wished one night or you clicked your cleats together and said, please, I hope I become an All-American and an Olympian. But, for the young women in the room that are in here trying to figure out how they're going to get to their goals and how they're going to be successful, can you talk a little bit about the intentionality and just kind of the perseverance that you had throughout your career playing sports?
Yeah, gosh. When I think back of my 12-year-old self and Brandy and I did grow up with each other, and I mean, I don't know if we were able to share that, but yes, we grew up with each other. And when I think back of my 12-year-old self, like you would never think, oh my gosh, that girl's going to be an All-American. She's going to be an Olympian. Like, I was a late bloomer. And I think the biggest thing when I think about when I was in college, it's like just being exactly where your feet are. Obviously, we all know this, like being patient with our rate of success. If I was looking at my peers, they were already committing to colleges early, just all of those things. And I think it's just being on your lane. And you've heard this, you know. I think that was one of the things that my parents taught me well, was like, you're going to just be you. You're going to stay in your lane. You're not going to look left. You're not going to look right, but you're going to keep going down that road and going down that path, but going down at your own pace. And I think just when you talk about intentionality, it was being intentional every single day. Like, I was a competitor. Like, I wanted to be good, but you know, I was puny and skinny and like, oh my gosh, like my 13, 14-year-old self, like there's no way. But I think it's just staying on that path. And I even think about going into college. Like, I didn't even think I was going to play past college, but became an Olympian, and I retired at the age of 35. Like, it's crazy. Like, and I just think when you stay present and you stay in the moment and you just worry about that day, I think it makes it a little bit easier. Because when you start to, you know, yes, we have goals and we're looking ahead and we want to accomplish all these things, but it's just so important to just be right now. And I feel like now in our society, everything is so instantaneously, like, I want anything, and if I want a coffee from Starbucks, I can order it right away, like just anything, you know. And I think it's just so important to remember that there is a journey, like be patient. And I think that's one of the biggest things when I look back was, I do think I was really present in those moments. I was a kid when I was a kid, I was in college when I was in college, and so forth. And so I think that's just what's important, is just to enjoy that journey, and, you know, can't speed up things, you know, be patient.
Yeah, be where your feet are planted. Be patient. Give yourself some grace, because you're not perfect. You're not going to be, but we expect you to be great, right? You expect to be great, whatever that is for that day. Oh, yeah. So let's fast forward a little bit. And Kayleen, I want to come back to you and talk a little bit about, we've talked about you've retired. I asked if she was still recovering from retirement. She said she's fully recovered. And so, you know, I've had the opportunity to be able to see you at our different sporting events, either while they're here in Lubbock, or, you know, you travel with some of the teams and support them in that way. Can you share with the folks that are here today, why is it important for you and to you to give back to Texas Tech and to be present as you're giving back to Texas Tech?
Yes, ma'am. I'd love to do that. Number one, I played sports at Texas Tech back in the 70s. It was an unknown thing. Women's athletics didn't exist at that point. So everything that we had to fight for. We had to go scratch and claw and get our way, and we didn't have financial things. We had to buy our own uniforms my freshman year for basketball. I remember the coach went to a Ford dealership here in Lubbock and just begged for a van for us to travel in. And we drove everywhere. We went one weekend to Houston, played 4 basketball games, and drove back to Lubbock. And, you know, that was a hard trip. And so for me to be able to financially donate money or time or whatever to show support for these people who are playing now is very important, because I know what it's like not to have that. And to see what people have created at Texas Tech to this point. Coach Sharp is very influential in this because she produced winners. People always want to be with winners. I also struggled because we didn't always win. So when you're not in the spotlight, it's hard to raise money. It's hard to get funding. It's hard to show yourself out there. But those kids that are playing like that, they also need support, financially and otherwise. So I think it's important, if you're going to support a team or a college or a school or whatever, you need to do it wholeheartedly. And that's what I intend to do for Texas Tech. I had some of the best years of my life at this school. My favorite time was running track and playing basketball here, why would I not support it? So I'm like all the time trying to do whatever we can do to help Texas Tech be its very best. I know what it's like to be because I got to go to Atlanta to that game that we're celebrating this weekend. I was there. It was the greatest thing ever for me to be able to be experiencing that, just like it was for you guys. And so it's not just the players. You guys that are playing right now, whatever sport, it doesn't matter. You need to understand it's not just about you. It's about the fans too. We are with you. The true fans, and you see them all the time, are with you. Win or lose, it doesn't matter. We're behind you, with you, and we will be. Maybe not everybody, but people like me.
Well, and people like you are special, right? And you hope that you can cultivate that and hear what Kayleen is saying, those of you there in the room. I mean, you take pride in what you're doing now. You won't even know what it feels like to be able to see others that come after you be able to achieve success, knowing that you were able to put some bricks in that house that's being built for them to compete. So take pride in what you're doing now, but never lose the connection that you have with Texas Tech and the time that you spent here and the people that poured into you while you were here. And when we talk about giving back, you know, Tasha, I'm going to, because Janice, you've got some good stories, so we're going to finish with you. So Tasha, I'm going to go to you now to talk about the idea of giving back. So you have started the Natasha Watley Foundation, and your mission is to cultivate spaces for growth and empowerment for young girls and women, most of whom of color, right, to be able to infiltrate a sport that can be seen for those that are privileged, that may not have the resources. So talk to us a little bit about why that was important for you.
Yeah, no, I mean, growing up, and Brandy, you can speak to this as well, is just, I didn't see a lot of young ladies that looked like me growing up. I played softball, grew up in Irvine, California, a suburb, Orange County, in Los Angeles, if anybody's familiar. But I didn't see a lot of girls that looked like me. And one day, I will always share this story, after the 2008 Olympics, I went on this speaking tour in South LA. Took my medals, just softball is great. There's so many opportunities. I got a college scholarship, did this, traveled the world. And this one African-American girl raises her hand, and she's like, Miss Watley, your story sounds so neat, but what is softball? For me, like that, and this is 45 minutes away from where I grew up. And talk about, when we talk about being intentional, I feel like my parents raised me in a place where I was going to have access to everything. This young lady had no idea what softball was. And so for me, that was like life-changing. Like, that can't be. This young lady at least needs to know what this game is, because she could be the next All-American. Maybe it's not the next All-American softball player, but maybe she's the next All-American track athlete, the next All-American tennis athlete. We just got to put this game in front of them. And so it was really important for me to start my nonprofit, and we can get into a whole nother conversation of just starting a business and starting a nonprofit. I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but I wanted to make the game accessible. I wanted to make sure that every young lady knew that softball specifically, obviously that's near and dear to me, but that softball was a game for them. Anybody can play it. Anybody can achieve it. Anything. You put your mind to it, you can become anything. And so I wanted to give that possibility, and so it was really important for me to start my organization, and it's just been a lot of fun just to see the young ladies that we've been able to impact, and we do a lot in LA, and we're hoping to expand outside of Los Angeles, but it's been a lot of fun just to be able to see the possibilities and all the things that these young ladies can accomplish just because we're putting this game in front of them.
Yeah, thank you. You never know where sports is going to take you. It is a vehicle of wonderment and opportunity and adventure. And Janice, you, in addition to being a teacher, also, as I mentioned, moonlight a little bit as a referee. So I wanted to ask you two questions. The first is, as a referee and someone who doesn't have some heavy skin in the game, what's your perspective in terms of how you see young girls and women behave and interact, and the impact that sport has had on them? And then I hear that you might have a very relevant refereeing story to share after you're done sharing some of your perspective as a referee.
All right. There's a shortage of referees. Some of our friends got us into it. I completely got out of coaching this year when my husband and I moved. He's a head softball coach now, and So I couldn't just not be around basketball. And so our friends are like, well, you can call as many sub-varsity games as you want, and we have, let me tell you. And so you can get a shirt and whistle, Fox 40 off Amazon, pretty cheap. Our daughter does it too, where she teaches. And then you've got to have a good mentor. You've got to be thick-skinned. And just learn that pretty quick. What I've seen just in a lot of tournaments, and we have taken off school to go referee because that's how big the shortage is. And we still love the game, and we want to be around it. But then to call games, some girls are just learning, okay? And I can, one game, one girl looks at me, she is so tired, there's 40 seconds left in the game, and she asks me one more time, which basket is ours? This one down here. Okay, thank you, ma'am, thank you. And just learning, okay, that's great. As we've gone on, and Brian and I have called both of us over 50 games, our phone will go off all day today of what needs to be covered tonight, which we've already told them. We're busy. And we're busy all weekend this weekend. But you can kind of tell real quick. I've been way impressed with good young coaches, and that's what I shared with the other day when we were talking about questions. But then to see good young coaches on the sidelines, and they're positive, and they're pouring into these kids, and I know that's a repeat answer, but then I'm looking at it going, I may not do this a whole lot longer. It's great to see these young women on the sidelines with these girls, and during timeouts, those girls are just looking at them and following what's being drawn up or what's being said or how they're cheering or how they clean up their bench or what's their body language. And there's so many factors that go into that, and it's from that young coach to those young girls. And so that is so exciting to see. It doesn't matter if it's a 7th grade B game. It is still so exciting to see, or how these girls have improved from November till now. And so that's fun. So just for somebody that's been around the game forever, it's still fun to be around it. But then we have a group that we talk about different. You don't realize how much you think you know in the stands until you step on the court and make those calls. So anyway, we've had a lot of fun with it. And like I said, been around the game and still be in shape a little bit. But then, to see the influence of young coaches, that's great for some of us that aren't so young anymore.
That's awesome. Thank you. Okay, so our time is coming to a close, but I feel like what I've heard in the intel is that we've got a pretty special and relevant story about officiating and refereeing that you wanted to share before we close out.
So I think it was my freshman year, sophomore year, and so Sunday our text group kind of got it going with a 33 union, pictures of 80s hair and bangs. I mean, just so many things from 30 years ago. It was just so fun, and then I started thinking about. We made a T-shirt one year. Scott's Tees used to be on University. Scott's Tees. And we went to him and had a list of Coach Sharp's top 10 ref slams. And I think he printed those shirts for us for like $7. And at the time, we may not have had $7, but we figured out how to get a shirt. And so Coach Sharp was great about, she'd go to battle for us, and she'd stand up for us just like coaches do, and they need to against referees. And she would have some great ones. I couldn't find the shirt, but just off memory, and I did tell Coach this story already this morning, but I can just, she would just wear those refs out, and one time this ref just tried to turn and look at the bench, and she looked at him and was like, don't look over here and grin. And I mean, you're not really supposed to laugh at that point, but you are really laughing on the inside at that point. And so she always had some great ones, and I'm going to have to dig that out, Coach, somewhere. I still have it on a blanket, I know. But she had some good ones, and whatever she said, they deserved. They did.
Well, if you find it, Krista, if you find it, let's get that out. We'll reprint it, give it to the rest of our coaches, and they can probably wear them for their sports, too. Thank you all so much for being here with us this morning. Can we give them a round of applause? Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate the conversation.
I think it's important to celebrate National Girls and Women's in Sports Day because, first of all, I have 3 sisters. 2 of them are playing at the collegiate level in tennis, and It's impacted my family a lot, I would say. It impacted me a lot in the first place because one of them is my older sister, and if she wanted to play college sports, I don't think I would have even thought about maybe playing college tennis, but since she played college tennis, it really encouraged me to play as well.
National Girls and Women in Sports Day is really important just because it celebrates and honors all the things that they do on and off the field. My fiance was a Division I soccer player at Oregon, and she's taught me all about sacrifice and determination more than anybody I know. I'm super thankful for her and all the girls and women out there who are playing sports to this day and can look back and be an inspiration for little girls out there.
It's important because sports teach everyone important life lessons, and they give you lifelong friends, and everyone deserves a chance to have that opportunity to have both of those things.
I think celebrating girls and women in sports day is super important. Number one, because I have a mom and a sister who both played collegiate golf at Tulsa University, and without them, I wouldn't be where I am today in golf and in life. So, huge thank you to them, and celebrate their day.
Like I have a cousin that plays basketball, so for me, just being there for her and just making sure that every time I get a chance, just tell her how important she is to the game and how important she is to me and to everybody else that she affects, and always just giving her to know that just that extra feedback. Just like for me, just wanting to inspire the next little kid that comes up, I want her to inspire the next little girl that wants to be like her. And
it's important because it shows how strong women are in the sport today, and seeing a lot of them come from different countries and work their way over here and actually participate in track and field and further education. It's great to see that. So.
We get asked a lot when we work in athletics, what's the best thing about working in athletics? And there's so many things, but one of them is the student athletes. Being around these student athletes, getting to watch them grow, getting to watch them compete. I remember back when Zuri Sanders played for the Lady Raiders, I got to meet her as part of a group that was talking about some of the racial issues in this country, and I was just blown away by Zuri and her composure and her thoughts, and I know she wants to do a lot of great things with her career, and she's already on her way. She's on the Lady Raiders staff now, and she is going to join us here, and she is going to lead this next panel, so please welcome Zuri Sanders up here.
Well, goodness, Brandy. I feel like that's a tough act to follow because you had great people on your panel. But I think we also have a terrific panel as well with the the 3 athletes and the 2 coaches that I have. And so let me give a little brief introduction. And I'll try to make it short, but it's really hard because everyone has such a great resume here. So Abby Orrick with softball, if you want to head down here. Abby is from Edgewood, Texas. She is an academic All-Big 12 rookie team in 2021. During her sophomore season, she started all 44 games. She was named the All-Big 12 second team during her sophomore year and led the Big 12 with 6 goals, including in league action. Was a Big 12 All-Freshman her freshman season and was second on the team with scoring 8 goals. She is entering her 3rd season on the softball field. Oh, sorry. 8. I'm so sorry. She's
Oh, good.
Girl, well, your SID did a great job too because it's all on there. So you do sound really good. She is entering her 3rd season on the softball field and is academically a senior, right? With your last year. Give it up for Abby Orrick. Next, we have Taylor Limbaugh with track and field. Taylor, come down here. She is a sophomore from Schulenburg, Texas. She recorded PRs in the 5K and the 6K in 2021 in cross country. She's getting her degree in agricultural communications. She's a member of SAC, student government, and FCA. Oh my gosh, there was a lot on there. You were very active, and I love it. Please give it up for Taylor Limbaugh. And then for our next student athlete, we have Ashley Williams with soccer. Ash, come on down here, girl. She grew up in Allen, Texas. She was named the All-Big 12 second team during her sophomore year and led the Big 12 with 6. Oh, that's probably why I got it wrong, huh? I'm so sorry. Ashley, let me revert it, and then I'm going to give you your bio, okay? Ashley, she was named All-Big 12 second team during her sophomore year and led the Big 12 with 6 goals inside league action. She was the Big 12 All-American, All-Freshman her freshman season and was second on the team with scoring 8 goals. And then now, so sorry for you, Abby. I'm not gonna lie here. I'm a little bit nervous, so let's do this together. Clearly, I'm giving everyone's different bios to all around, but at the same time, I think the great thing about it is that there's tremendous accolades for all three of you, right? So let me give you yours correctly. I'm so sorry, Abby. You made the academic All Big 12 rookie team in Texas, yep, for 2021. She's entering her third season on the softball field and is academically a senior. I didn't doubt that. Okay, so we're good with that. Next up with the two coaches, we have JoJo, who is the head women's golf coach here. Miss JoJo, please come on down. And I'm trying to kind of condense your resume because it's very, very long, because you were tremendous at Oklahoma State as a golf. You were as a golf player. You were tremendous at Purdue as an assistant, and you were tremendous now in over a decade as the head golf coach here at Texas Tech. During that time, oh my goodness, there's so much on here. Let me try to condense it. During those times, you made the NCAA tournament in all but one season. And on top of that, in your guidance, this program has reached an NCAA regional 10 times, as well as 2 trips to the NCAA championships. JoJo, thank you so much for taking the time to come up here. And last but not least, we have Coach Gerlich, who is the head women's basketball coach for the Lady Raider women's basketball program. Coach Gerlich is in her 3rd season. She has won a national championship as her time here as a player, and now she's bringing that success here as a head coach. She is in her first year. She was able to lead the Lady Raiders to their first win over in-state rival Texas since 2013. In her 2nd year, I heard a lot of claps during that, so I think that's big, In her 2nd season, she had really amazing record. She had 3 top 10, 25 wins, and now in your 3rd season, Coach Gerlich, you have the best start for a program since 2010, 2011. Thank you so much for you all being up here. Let's get this started. I think the biggest thing with this day is just you're talking about how historic being a woman or a girl in sports is, right? Because you 3 are athletes now, you 2 were tremendous athletes during your time, and you kind of learned some great tools during that. You learned how to be confident in what you do. You learned how to be a little swaggy in what you do, right? And I feel like that's something that is exemplified from not just being an athlete, but also goes into your personal lifestyle. So let's start it right here with our 3 athletes, and I'm gonna have to get on to you, Taylor, because that green, Texas Tech, we play Baylor tomorrow, so that green's tearing me up, but you look good in it. You look good in it. So I think that makes up for it. So let's just kind of talk with you, Taylor. Can you talk about how your position has encouraged and motivated the generations who come behind you to just give them some type of confidence in what they do as young athletes?
Yeah, for sure. I think the biggest thing as a student athlete is our platform and our position to be able to set a good example for little girls all over the state, all over the country, and all over the world to show that they can achieve their goals, whether that's in sports or outside of sports, especially within tech athletics. We have many great opportunities to be able to volunteer with little kids in local elementary schools and just help them show that they can do what they want to do, even with people and men and just anyone going against them, telling them no, telling them they can't do that because they aren't worthy, they just don't have the background needed, that they can achieve what they want to do. And ultimately, if that's play Division I, Division II, Division III sports, NAIA, they can do it. And even just anything that they have, they can achieve their goals, which we can use our platform and just build good relationships with them to establish those connections and inspire them from a young age.
That's awesome, Taylor. Now, Abby, you and I talked before this, and we got to just talk one-on-one, and I got to hear more about why you're interested in forensic sciences and then how you want to go into the FBI later on. So hearing kind of Taylor talk about just having confidence as a young woman, can you talk a little bit about the things that you've learned as a softball player and how you're going to take those tools that you learned and kind of put into the real world whenever you do, get some looks into the FBI?
Yeah, so for softball, it's all about a game of failure. I mean, if you get on 3 times, you're considered can be an All-American type deal. So for the FBI, I'm going to graduate early, so going in when I'm 23, it's going to be really hard for me to get in anyways. So it's all going to be about me, trying to, even though I fail, keep going. If I can't go one route, hey, what's the next best route type deal. So softball has taught me a lot about how to keep going, even though I fail, just get back up and go again.
I like that. That's a really good answer. So, kind of going off that, let's get to you, Ashley. So I feel like there has been sometimes a negative stigma around women's sports. You know, there's body image. People talk about the things that women can't do on the court, course, or field, or whatever respective sport you are in. Kind of talk a little bit about what you have done with, you know, some of the mentors that you've had before you've become, you know, such a star little soccer player, who've been able to instill, you know, confidence within you to get those negative stigmas out of your head.
Yeah, so my mom has actually been a really good mentor to me because, so what, you're a girl, you can still do it. It doesn't matter who you're playing with. And, like, on the field, in the classroom, it's really important. And, like, actually, I have a story. So,
tell it.
So, when I was younger, I had, like, a lot of guy friends, right? I'm like, cool, like, hey, what's up? How are you? Whatever. Had a lot of guy friends. They love the sports, okay? So, yeah, I'm in sports, too. So, I would play basketball with them and baseball with them, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm like, Mom, like, I'm kind of a little scared, like, you know, like, their guys are going to be like, oh, she's a girl, like, what is she doing here? But you gain respect if you can prove yourself. So that's on the field, like, not just at practice, but what are you doing outside of practice that, like, separates you from the group? And then, like, I just think you can get respect, and who cares if you're a girl? You can do it.
Shoot, I'm going to have to give that to JoJo now after about the who cares if you're a girl, because you have a tremendous resume, not just as an athlete at Oklahoma State, but also during your time at Purdue, and then now as a head coach of the women's golf team here. What do you feel like in your role as a head coach? How do you feel like you've instilled confidence within every player that you brought here to West Texas?
That's a great question. I feel fortunate that we have great players on our team. They've all achieved at a high level, whether it's at Texas Tech already or through their national teams or in their home state. But I think golf is really about confidence and trust in yourself. And, you know, you learn that through the preparation that you put in. And that's what we try to do with our team is be the most prepared that we can be. And then as a coach, when we get to a tournament, we basically turn them loose. You know, you have to trust your own decisions. In golf, you're the only person out there, the only one responsible for your score. So I think it's all about preparation and believing in yourself.
I love that. What about you, Coach Gerlich? How do you instill that into the players that you bring here to West Texas?
You know, I think that's one of my primary goals, really, as a coach, is to try to empower women, young women especially. I think in this day and age, especially with social media, it's so difficult for young girls and young women to be confident in what they do, because the moment they make a mistake, it's blasted on social media, and that never goes away. I'm thankful that we didn't have that when I played. But at the same time, you know, I think that every single day we try to tell our kids like that, how much we believe in them and that they're here for a reason, and what they did up to this point prepared them to go out and be great, and they've got to continue to do that. But it is a life lesson of getting knocked down. And it always, you know, I just learned recently that softball is a game of failure. Like, when I heard that, I was like, what does that mean? But it's so true, like in any sport, really. I mean, you're going to fail more than you succeed. But it's those lessons. You learn so much more in a loss. You learn so much more from a failure than you do from a win. But it's about that journey of going through that. And so we just try to tell our kids from day one how much we believe in them. And this is one of my favorite things that I say to them, and I'm sure they're like, whatever, Coach Gerlich, but I always tell them, I'm like, I just wish they could see themselves through my eyes, because I brought them here for a reason, and I just see greatness in them. And I see not only greatness that they perform at this moment, but the greatness the potential that they have, and that the sky's the limit. And so it's just breathing that into them and just continuing to uplift them and surround them by great people.
You know, Coach Gerlich, I'm going to have to say it. The whole social media piece, I know I messed up at the beginning, so please don't blast me on social media. I'm asking for grace right there. But, you know, I feel like those were all terrific answers. And just kind of coming back here to the student athletes, hearing coaches talk that way about not just their athletes, but I bet, Coach Gerlich, JoJo, you're talking about every athlete, every women's athlete, with, you know, at Texas Tech, at another Big 12 school, wherever it may be in the NCAA. How does that make you feel, knowing that they want you to be able to see, you know, yourself through their eyes? Because clearly they have a lot of confidence. Your head coaches all have confidence in you to bring you here for a reason. How do you take that and kind of roll with it? Because you got to have confidence within yourself, right? What does that mean to you Let's start with you, Abby.
I think that it just like kind of reminds us of like even when we do fail, like there are other people. Like it's not just about the failures. Like we're like, oh, like we need to be great. Oh, like we only need to do this. But like my coach is always believing in me, and like I am here for a reason. So like that's something that if I do need to fall back, I know, hey, I am like the top 5%. Like I am here for a reason. I have been playing type deal. So I think that's one of the things that like really like gives me a lot of more confidence of even when I am having my worst day or like my fuel tank is low, like, hey, I'm here on the court and there's 20 of us, you know? So it's like, I don't know, it just really empowers me, so.
What about you, Taylor?
Yeah, I completely agree. It's very reassuring and empowering to know that they feel that way. As a female student athlete, everyone has an opinion on what you should do, how you should perform, what you should look like, how you should act, especially in sports. So just knowing that there's a lot of people out there who truly support us and truly want us to be here and know that we can succeed, even though there's so many people that have their own opinions, is really reassuring. And again, very just empowering to know that even though everyone else thinks that I should do this, I have my coach that's behind me, that has my back and supporting me, and I can do what I need to do for my utmost happiness and utmost success, which is just overall just really amazing. A great community, for sure.
Yeah. Ashley, I know with you, I feel like you're going to be a coach one day. And the first thing you're going to tell your people is, you're a girl, so what? You can do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's great because transparency is a big thing that you need from your coaches, right? And it's what you expect to get out of your coaches whenever you're being recruited. So, Ashley, I know with you, we kind of talked a little bit about what you want to do later in life. And I don't want to spill it a little bit of much of, I think you should kind of talk about it, but I think you have a love for animals, is that right?
Yes.
And just talk a little bit about why you have a love for that and how you feel like that passion can help young girls who probably don't think, you know, maybe it's not okay for me to love, you know, horses. Maybe I have to go into sports to get some type of respect. But talk about what you love with horses and why you have that kind of ambition towards it.
So I'm not really like cowgirl yee, like have all these animals back at home, you know, like grew up on a farm, sadly. Like I really wish I did, but I've always had a love for animals. Why? I'm going to be honest, I don't know. I think they're just fascinating. I like horses, so like, I don't know. I'm just like, they're beautiful, 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 beautiful. And like, so coming into school, I was like, okay, well, what am I going to study? There's so many options. Like, what am I going to do? I'm like, animals. Okay, perfect. But then once I started looking and like getting into it and talking with my advisors and everything, I was like, wow, there's a lot of options. So I was like, okay, let's narrow it down. So I was on the vet route. I was like, all right, this is what I want to do. It's challenging. It's obviously doable for an athlete, like no problem. But it just wasn't for me because eventually I'd like to go pro later in life. So I switched it to equine production. And so I'm on that route right now. So with that being said, the classroom is just as important as your athletics or your sport, I think. So, like, soccer advocates really big, you have to make good grades in class. If you need help, go get a tutor. So, like, don't think it's too hard for you or too difficult. You can do anything you put your mind to. And, yeah.
I love that. You know, when I moved here from Indiana, that was the first time I saw cattle. So, like, and the thing is, like, and it was crazy whenever all that cattle started, like, happening. And I remember, like, I was like, this can't be real. Like, because the farms that I know about, they're really far from my hometown. But I think it is so cool how everyone in this community is so big on, you know, just West Texas tough, like West Texas pride, right? And this community, you know, just talking a little bit about what it's like here and how people are so engulfed in not just Texas Tech, but also Texas Tech athletics and women's sports. I think it really shows in the support that this fan base gives, right? So JoJo, with you, I want you kind of just to talk a little bit about the community and just the love that you've gotten as a head coach here at Texas Tech from the community and from the fan base here.
Yes, it's been awesome. I'm originally from Roswell, New Mexico, which is only a couple hours away. So I've always felt that Lubbock is almost home for me. My parents are still there and come back quite a bit to visit. But just the people in Lubbock, the people at the golf course, just the support has been awesome. I think our players feel that. We're very international, so we have players from all over the world, and when they get here, I think on their recruiting visits even, they just feel the support. Golf is different in that I think the community feels really close to the team, so they'll be out there on the golf course and see our team, and they feel free to speak to them inside the pro shop or on the course, and they always know where we're playing, when we're playing. So when we get back, we always have people that know how we finished or want to know how things went. But I think just that makes it very comfortable here, and I think our players feel that support, and it's awesome to see.
What about you, Coach Gerlich? Tomorrow is going to be a pretty big day. I mean, this weekend as a whole, with it being Alumni Weekend, as well as celebrating the 30th year reunion of the 93 championship, which you were actually a part of, a big part of it as well. And so just talking about this community, I know there's probably one memory that's really engraved in your head when you first got back to Lubbock after winning that championship in Atlanta. Just talk about this community and what this fan base means to you.
Yeah, the support is incredible, and I've known that since I grew up. I grew up in this area, and girls basketball has always been very, very popular and very well supported and respected in the Panhandle and West Texas. And I think you can even see that by going to high school girls games today. I mean, when you go see Lubbock Monterey play, and I know Jill's here today, if you're at Coronado, if you're at Lubbock Cooper, I mean, it's crazy how many people are in those gyms watching girls basketball. And I was really fortunate growing up in West Texas, and the whole community would be at the basketball games, and so that was really fun. And when you made it to state, not one person was left in the town, back at home. But that same type of support came to Texas Tech as well, and but when we won the national championship, and probably the 2 years before that, even it really started coming to life and coming to fruition of all the hard work that Coach Sharp put into just getting our team out in the community and just telling our story and how much she wanted to grow our program and to be supported. And when we got on that run and we went and we won the national championship, we had to wait till the next day to come back to Lubbock. And when we came back on that Monday night, that's when the men's basketball national championship was going on. And so, little did we know that they were planning a celebration for us. And they picked us up on the tarmac at the airport in limousines. And they had told us that there was going to be a surprise for us when we got back. And so we thought the limousines were the surprise, because we're usually in like Lincoln Town cars or like our own cars at the airport or whatever. And so there was 5 or 6 limousines that they put all the girls in, and we were driving around actually listening to the men's national championship game and, just being excited. We couldn't believe we won, all this stuff. And then all of a sudden they turned down Broadway, and we could see, when we got to University, we could see the lights at Jones Stadium on. And we were like, it's a Monday night in April. Like, what are the lights doing on? And we just kept, driving, and they turned, and we were going down University. And as we turned into the parking lot, we could see the top left corner of Jones Stadium packed with people. Like, not, a couple of heads, like packed, looked like a sold out crowd. And then we realized that celebration was for us. And they took us down into the tunnel. And Coach Sharp tells this story that you could hear the sirens so loud whenever we were in the limousines. And then as we went down that tunnel, you couldn't hear the sirens anymore because the fans were so incredibly loud. And there were 40,000 people in Jones Stadium. The entire west side was full. The lower side was full on the east side. And they brought us in and rolled us around. And I know all the video they have, our mouths were going, like the whole time. I mean, we're just going, I cannot believe all these people are here for us, for women's basketball, for, we were 18 to 22-year-olds, and we had brought this wonderful celebration and joy to this community. And to this day, I still think that that's there for not just for women's basketball, but for women's sports. I mean, we get a great turnout, and I just think that West Texas is built different. They really respect women. They really encourage youth sports. They understand. I mean, so many of us, and I have so many friends in the audience today that were respective high school players or tennis players, soccer players, whatever it might have been, and they're raising their children like that too. It's empowering, it's important, and it teaches so many life lessons. And I think that's why so many women. I think that's why there's so many strong women in West Texas to this day.
There are a lot of strong women in West Texas. So hearing that, I think our time is kind of dwindling down. So let's end it with this last question, because I guess I'm biased because I'm a woman, but I love women. I love my mother, my grandmother, my aunt, everything that they've instilled in me when it comes to just confidence. It doesn't just come from just sports, right? So let's talk about who is someone in your life, a woman, and it can be an athlete as well, who's really helped you along the way, just learn what you are to society, and you're just more than just a female. You're, an amazing person. You're intelligent. You're smart. You're hardworking. You have the grit, right? Who is that one person who's really instilled that within you?
Yeah, for me, that would be my mother. We grew up in a really small town, so she was always like, oh, like, it's okay if you go big. You don't always have to be home. Like, it was always family oriented, and so she was a teacher for a while, and it really, since I grew up, just remembering, she was always, trying to help others, trying to, hey, you can do this, or if things weren't working out for them, she was always trying to give them the upper hand. And so when my grandmother died, I mean, it just really, she showed me, how strong she could be even when things were hard. And so, for me, she really empowered me to, just be, hey, even if you don't want to go play basketball, we're still going to support you. Or if you don't want to do this, we're going to support you to be the woman that you want to be. So, my mom.
Oh, I love that. What about you, Taylor?
Yeah, I'd also have to agree. My mom is definitely the biggest influence on me in sports and in life. She is one of the strongest, most carefree people that I know, where she's going to do what she wants to do for herself and for the people that she loves. Earlier during the breakfast, we were talking to the people at our table about how my mom and my dad both run marathons and ultra marathons, which is just crazy as is. But I grew up hearing stories about my mom running the Chicago Marathon with a stress fracture in her foot and still getting a Boston qualifier, and just stories like that just set the bar for wow, I can do hard things, and just my mom is so cool. And just continuing on with life as I got older, just talking to her about what I want to do in life, and her saying, oh, I kind of want to be a doctor, but I don't know if that's because you make a lot of money, when I really want to create good relationships with kids and help them achieve their goals. And she just tells me, who cares what other people think? Who cares what your salary is? Do what you want to do. That's all that matters in life. And just little things like that. There's been so many races before in high school, before state, and even in college, I'll talk to her on the phone where she's like, you are amazing. You can do this. Let's go, girl. You got it. And just having that influence my whole life is really just set the bar for me, and just showed me that I can do hard things, like I said, and just gives me a spark inside that is something I haven't gotten from any other woman in my life.
Oh, that's amazing, Taylor. I'm envious of runners. If I'm running somewhere, I'm going to run to get something to eat. But other than that, I think that's a reward, right? If you're running it off to go get it and then you run it back off. Yeah. What about you, Ashley?
So for me, as well as my mom, single mom, 4 kids, and she was there for every single one of us, no matter what she was going through or what was happening. And I really love her, so thank you, Mom. But it just feels good to have someone that you can always rely on. And for every game, she's always like, you got this, you can do it, believe in yourself. So.
What about you, JoJo?
Definitely my mom as well. My mom was a teacher and coach. She was actually my high school coach, very successful in the state of New Mexico. And I think she was always there to support me, and probably was the one that pushed me the most to do things that were uncomfortable, or just reminded me, what it took to be the best that you can be. So I still talk to her every day. She gives me tips on coaching and always wants to know how the team's doing. But yeah, she was definitely the person that helped get me where I am now.
Love that. Coach Gerlich.
Well, I have several. I can't really pinpoint it to one because I'm older, right? Y'all are going to have more people influence you as you grow up and just get to different stages of your life. Obviously, my mom and dad were huge influences for me. My dad was my coach in high school. I think he taught me how to be tough because he was tough on me. Really, really showed me what tough love was about and how I could do hard things, but that I didn't have time to feel sorry for myself. My mom was an unsung hero because she always was the unconditional supporter, had my back, picked me up, took me shopping every time I had a bad game or a bad day when she knew that my dad was all over me, you know. So, and to this day, she's my biggest supporter. She is my number one fan, there is no doubt, and she is the Lady Raiders' number one fan. I would say Coach Sharp was definitely a huge influence for me. And it came at a different stage in my life, right? I mean, I didn't know Coach Sharp my entire life, but when I got to college and realized how she empowered me, and again, she held me accountable. And I want to tell a really quick story because I think it's not always about being stroking people. It's not always about, oh, you're so great, oh, you're so wonderful, oh, you can do this, oh, I can see, you know, all those things. Sometimes it's about, like, what got you here? And I'll never forget this, and I bet she remembers this story, but I can't remember what year it was. Pretty sure it was early, freshman, sophomore, something like that, but we would come to practice, and I see this today, this is why I remember this story too, is we would come to practice, we would work out, whatever, and then we would leave. We'd come to practice, we would work out, we would leave. And we weren't doing great, and Coach Krista wasn't shooting it well. I think I was in a shooting slump, something like that. And I remember Coach Sharp pulling me aside after practice one day, and she goes, Kirk, what got you to be a Division I basketball player? And I was like, what do you mean? And she said, well, how did you get to be a Division I basketball player? I was like, Coach, I was in the gym all the time. Like I grew up in the gym. In the summer, I was in the gym. She was like, why aren't you in the gym now? I'm just telling you, like, that hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, I just looked at her and went, yes, ma'am. Like, I understand. Like, you know, like, you're right. Like, and I think that's part of college, too, is when you get to college, your mom and dad aren't there to say, hey, why aren't you training? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? You know, why aren't you putting in that extra effort? Whatever. You know, like, you have other things going on in college. The priorities go away. You know, I was here for 3 hours for a practice, coach. What more do you want? I want 4 more, right, of you in the gym by yourself shooting or whatever it might be. But not only that, that was accountability for sure. But she inspired me to want to coach because when I came to Tech, I didn't really want to coach. And as I went through my experiences, I was like, I want to do this. I want to impact people. I want to empower young women. I want to teach them how to be confident in their field, in their craft, and I want them to learn how to win. And then also, just the relationships that she showed me were so special. And my teammates, I mean, I can even go now that my teammates inspired me. Bryn inspires me. You know, she inspires me now as a mother. So it's a whole group of women and people and men that inspire me. But I would definitely say that Coach Sharp had an instrumental piece in my livelihood of making me want to become a coach to impact others as she impacted me.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for being on the panel this morning and, you know, just giving your insight into what this day means to you, because I feel like each of you has such a special testimony, and it really shows today through your answers. So thank you.
We have a great video to show you, but we're going to skip showing it this morning, and we're going to encourage you to go to our social media and watch it later. It's fantastic. It's got some great people on it. A lot of the people that we've talked to today, and so we'll encourage you throughout the week to check those. We're going to end with what I think sometimes we get lazy and take too many things for granted here in Lubbock, that we have a giant in Coach Sharp here in our midst and part of our community, and what she's done and what she's meant to us at Texas Tech Athletics and women's sports. But just beyond that, just what she's meant. As a coach, she was obviously fantastic. 20 postseason appearances, I believe 7 or 8 Sweet 16s, 3 Elite 8s, national championship in 1993. She's in the College Basketball Hall of Fame. Her record is beyond dispute of what she has done for basketball, but what she's done for this community, what she's done for Texas Tech, what she's done for so many people in this room and beyond and everywhere else, it can't be measured. She is truly a giant. She's a legend. We're lucky to have her here, and she's joining joining us right now, Marcia Sharp. I feel like I've interviewed you
I know, we've done this a few times.
billion
haven't we?
times,
I'm
yes.
telling you, we're going to have to bring our A game today, though, because these guys were great, weren't they?
Yeah. What
oh,
do you-
my gosh.
When you hear things like that, and
Ugh.
you've heard former players,
Well,
these
yeah.
current student athletes. What's
I'm
that
a
like
little
for you?
emotional right now, for sure. Krista, thank you, and Janice, too. You know, I mean, nothing more touching than that, or that impacts you more than folks that you love that much, or that you've done great things with, to say something like that. So they're fabulous, and I've been so blessed in my world to be around them and a lot more like them, and it's just a great thing.
You know, you've had such success as a coach. You were a good player too, right? You had a success as a player. What do you tell parents and others, and you hear these stories here about what athletics can do for their kids?
Well, there's no question. It could be such a driving force, and for some, you know, at the college level, it's such an amazing experience, I think, because there are so many opportunities that change lives. There are so many people who have come through all the women's athletic programs, all the athletic programs, men or women here at Tech, who, if they had not had the opportunity because of a scholarship or the opportunity to come play, they couldn't have changed their circumstances much. It's one of my very favorite things to watch folks come, and when they're freshmen, the way they look, and when they leave as seniors, you watch it all the time. And the kinds of things that they have been empowered to do through athletics is amazing to me. I think it's one of the biggest vehicles in this country. It can change things in your world quicker than almost anything can.
Yeah, I remember you telling me a story, and the last time I interviewed you, and you're talking about your dad and Little League baseball, and you being a part of that, but you couldn't play.
No.
And you had to watch outside the fence. And how does it make you feel now when you drive around and you see little girls playing and you see the changes that have been made?
Well, it's pretty amazing. I was really blessed because my time in sports and the time that I got to coach particularly, Jody Conrad said this to me. She retired 1 year after I stopped coaching at Tech, and she told me, she said, Marcia, you know what, we got to coach it at one of the very best times because there were so many changes that happened in women's sports during that time. And I think the thing that the story tells about when I was a kid, I was 8 years old, and my dad coached a Little League baseball team, and I would go to practice and I'd play in practice. I mean, I was as good as any of the boys were at that time, which a lot of times happens when kids are young. And then when it came game time, I had to stand behind the backstop because girls weren't allowed to play Little League baseball at that time. And so for me, when I would drive around Lubbock and see kids working out on the corners of every elementary school, and they'd have those batting helmets on and those ponytails would be hanging out the back, I'd be like, yes, this is a deal. We've taken a step. But maybe more important than that is I have a group of nephews, and they don't know any different. I mean, they'll tell me when they were little, Aunt Marcia, you got to come watch so-and-so. She is awesome. She's the best player on our team. I'm thinking, man, that is such an amazing step, Robert, that happened. And I think it's just what do I call you, Robert? Gio. Good gosh. I don't know what Gio.
I thought you were mad at me when you said that. No.
I always call him Gio. But anyway, I think it talks about the progress that has been made. And the most important progress is that most everybody in our country and all over the world now believe that it's the right thing to do for women to have the same opportunities men had, and that was not always true.
I won't, this is kind of off script a little bit, but hearing you talk about Coach Conrad, and she retired the year after you did, I always thought back then, she doesn't have her villain anymore, right? You guys had such a great, I mean, I know you probably got along great off the court, I don't know, but it was such a great rivalry back then. And when you think about what you guys had to, the mountain you climbed to beat them and then start to really have the upper hand over them, that you guys were kind of the yin and yang to each other. Didn't you see that through your career?
No question. And I think it was a lot bigger rivalry on the floor with people than it was off, because I think a lot of the women of the generation that I coached felt like we had a responsibility not just to grow the game where we lived, but all over the country, and to be able to share those stories and struggles and go to committees on a national level and attempt to make decisions that impacted the entire country, sometimes not even just with women's basketball, but for women's sports altogether, was really a responsibility we felt, and we knew we had to do it, because if we didn't, we were never going to get to the point where it was a respected sport or women's sports were not respected. And honestly, you know, I loved all of the things that we got to do at Tech, and I'm so grateful to Texas Tech University because they were amazing. From day one, there was support here for women's sports and for us because of some of the administrators that we had. But I think one of the things that is most gratifying when you look back on it now is that all over the country, women were respected in sports more than they were the decade before that. So, you know, there's a lot involved in that, and you could tell a lot of stories about it, and a lot of stories that are not any fun to talk about. But it was important because those trailblazers really had to, you know, do things that were uncomfortable, that made other people uncomfortable, and you know, it was a really special, important time.
You know, we heard Kayleen earlier talking about just from her time to where we are now, but we even look like a couple of years ago. You and I talked about this, the weight room situation at one of the Final Fours, and you were saying there's still so much to do. What still do we have to do to accomplish, do you think?
Well, first of all, I'm a real big believer in all you guys that are athletes out here. I think you have a responsibility, and I know Krista and JoJo both understand this a lot from a coaching level, but you're caretakers of the game. Whatever sports you play, you're the caretakers of that sport when it's your time. And so the most important thing is to keep moving everything forward, to not settle for not as good a TV schedule as what maybe another sport or the men's side of it has, to not settle for less facilities, to not settle for a lesser opportunity in your national championships than the men's side have. All of those things are still mountains to climb, and we're getting closer. We're trudging up that mountain a little bit, but every generation has a responsibility, and one of the biggest ones is not to forget our roots. I mean, the second that you forget all of those sacrifices that people made, even before me, for sure, to make this important, you know, you're not going to gain any ground. You're not going to gain as much ground as you need to, and it takes an entire village to make that happen. And a lot of people, men and women, who have to really understand and really believe that women deserve the same opportunities as men. I do want to say this because I never talk about this stuff without making sure I do, but not anybody that wears a Texas Tech uniform now or in the past should ever forget that what Janine McCaney did for women's athletics at Texas Tech. There's nobody that came close to paying the price or doing the things that had to be done in those early days when Title IX first became law to make sure that it was implemented. And she should be everyone's hero, for sure.
There's no doubt. And I remember back during those years, especially the 93 year sticks in my head, that how much she meant to that team and how she supported that team. And again, probably a lot of people didn't realize some of the battles she fought.
Yeah, well, she was sick. She had cancer, and she only lived about 18 months after that. One of my greatest thrills is that we won it while she was still alive, because she deserved to have that moment. And it was as much her victory as it was any of the rest of us. And I've just been so grateful. And when she hired me, she said, you fight the battles on the floor and I'll fight the ones off. And hers were much more difficult most days to fight than the ones that I tried to do.
You've been retired 17 years as a coach. Obviously, you've stayed busy. You played a lot of golf, too, right in there, which is good as well. You've heard all these things. We're celebrating the 30-year anniversary. How do you sum it up when you look back, what you've built, what you've accomplished, and what is there left for Marcia Sharp?
Well, I'll always be an advocate, and I hope, you know, even in some ways, even support other advocates. You know, like I want to be the one that can encourage people to keep going and to keep doing things that matter. I'm such a huge believer in athletics and what it does for people and the way it teaches you how to handle adversity. You know, I have conversations every week with a former player or someone that I know who you have to go back to your athletic roots to get through that adversity. And there's nothing that teaches you how to handle adversity better than athletics if you allow that to happen. Just like they were saying about, you learn a lot from losing and from things that don't come just the moment you want them to come. But, if you take those lessons, and maybe that's something that I can continue to try to help people realize, I just want to be probably more now to try to help other people fight their battles and to get through those than my own. I do want to still be relevant in the world of athletics a little bit, and you find ways to do that in different causes and things that you're involved with, but it's not something that ever leaves you. You're going to find this one day. It's not ever going to leave you. You're always going to be there. I can go watch a game right now, and it's just like I can feel everything about it, and you just watch it differently, and you feel differently about it once it's been in your blood and you've done it for so long. But I'm just so proud. My gosh, what about this? Chris is a head coach, and Planette is an assistant here. What a deal. That's pretty cool to be able to watch that and to see that happening. But they're all over the place. I've got kids and contacts and people, places that you just want to try to be there for them and be an encourager. Can I say this, though? I think it was very, very interesting how this panel felt about it. So when you guys are mothers, think about the impact that these guys all talked about. And if you decide to be a coach, think about that too, because that's a huge responsibility. But what an amazing honor too, right, Gio, to be able to do that. It's just something that's really, really special. And I think athletics gives you some kind of a platform to give to your own children and other kids around you that you never should let go of. So I think it's just important that you attempt to try to, every single day when you get up, you have purpose about trying to impact someone else's life in a positive way. What could that be? And every morning when you get up, think about, what could I do today to make that happen?
Well, Coach, you have done that, I would assume, most of your days here, and you've meant so much to Texas Tech and Lubbock. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for all that you've done for all of us.
Great day. Thank you.
Thank you. It's Coach Marcia Sharp, everyone, and thank you again for being here. Thank you for being here this morning. If some of these stories have touched you, if they've moved you, for those of you who've donated, we want you to give to the Red Raider Club, the Excellence Fund. You can earmark your donations for women's athletics if that's what you want to do. Thank you to our women's athletes that are here today. Do not forget, tomorrow is a huge day. We're going to honor all of the former Lady Raiders, not just the national championship team, but we've got a big game against Baylor. We're expecting a big crowd. Bring some friends. We'll get you in there. We'll squeeze you all in. We want you there. We want it to be a huge, loud crowd to just recognize what this program has meant and what National Girls and Women in Sports Day means to us here at Texas Tech. So give, donate, help move to the next generation of student athletes, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you for being here. Wreck 'em.